Evening, my little angel. Friends are indispensable for every child. At your age, making friends is a very natural thing to do. But friendships don't always go well. In the previous episode, Pippi, Thomas, and Annika joined the end of a chase and fight between boys. Who are those boys, and what will happen next? Let's listen together. Just at that moment, the gate of one of the cottages nearby opened and a boy came rushing out. He looked scared, and that was no wonder, because head over the hills after him came 5 other boys. They soon caught him and pushed him against the fence, and all 5 began to punch and hit him. He cried and held his arm in front of his face to protect himself. "Give it to him! Give it to him!" cried the oldest and strongest of the boys, so that he'll never dare to show himself on the street again. "Oh," said Annika, "it's really they're hurting. How can they be so mean?" "It's that awful Benno. He's always in a fight," said Thomas. "And 5 against 1. What cowards!" Pippi went up to the boys and tapped Benno on the back with her forefinger. "Hello there," she said. "What's the idea? Are you trying to make hash out of little Willie with all 5 of you jumping on him at once?" Benno turned around and saw a little girl he had never seen before, a wild-looking little stranger who dared to touch him. For a while, he stood and gazed at her in astonishment. Then a broad grin spread over his face. "Boys," he said, "boys, let Willie alone and take a look at this girl. What a babe!" He slapped his knees and laughed. And in an instant, they had all dogged around Pippi, all except Willie, who wiped away his tears and walked cautiously over to stand beside Thomas. "Have you ever seen hair like hers? Red as fire, and such as shoes," Benno continued. "Can't I borrow one? I'd like to go out rowing and I haven't any boat." He took hold of one of Pippi's bread, but dropped it instantly and cried, "Ouch! I burned myself." Then all 5 boys joined hands around Pippi, jumping up and down and screaming, "Red head! Red head!" Pippi stood in the middle of the ring and smiled in the friendliest way. Benno had hoped she would get mad and begin to cry. At least she ought to have looked scared. When nothing happened, he gave her a push. "I don't think you have a very nice way with ladies," said Pippi, and she lifted him in her strong arms, high in the air, and carried him to a birch tree and hung him over a branch. Then she took the next boy and hung him over another branch. The next one she set on a gate post outside the cottage, and the next she threw right over the fence so that he landed in a flower bed. The last of the fighters she put in a tiny toy cart that stood by the road. Then Pippi, Thomas, Annika, and Willie stood and looked at the boys for a while. The boys were absolutely speechless with fright. Then Pippi said, "You are cowards. 5 of you attacking one boy. That's cowardly." Then you begin to push a helpless little girl around. "Huh, how mean." "Come now, we'll go home," she said to Thomas and Annika. and to Willie, "If they try to hurt you again, you come and tell me." And to Benno, who sat up in the tree and didn't dare to stir, she said, "Is there anything else you have to say about my hair and my shoes? If so, you better say it now before I go home." But Benno had nothing more to say about Pippi's shoes or about her hair either. So Pippi took her can in one hand and her spoon in the other and went away, following by Thomas and Annika. When they were back home in Pippi's garden, Pippi said, "Dear me, how awful! Here I found 2 beautiful things and you didn't get anything. You must hunt a little more. Thomas, why don't you look in that old hollow tree? Old trees are usually about the best places of all for thing finders." Thomas said that he didn't believe he and Annika could ever find anything. But to please Pippi, he put his hand slowly down into the hollow tree trunk. "Goodness!" he cried, utterly amazed, and put out his hand. In it, he held a little notebook with a leather cover. In a special loop, there was the little silver pencil. "Wow, that's queer," said Thomas. "Now see that," said Pippi. "There's nothing so nice as being a thing finder. It's a wonder there aren't more people that take it up. There'll be tailors and shoemakers and chimney sweeps and such like, but thing finders, no indeed, that isn't good enough for them." And then she said to Annika, "Why don't you fill in that old tree stump? One practically always finds things in old tree stumps." Annika stuck her hand down in the stump and almost immediately got hold of a red coral necklace. She and Thomas stood open-mouthed for a long time. They were so astonished. They thought that hereafter they could be thing finders every single day. Pippi had been up half the night before, playing ball, and now she suddenly felt sleepy. "I think I have to go and take a nap," she said. "Can't you come with me and tuck me in?" When Pippi was sitting on the edge of the bed, taking off her shoes, she looked at them thoughtfully and said, "He was going out rowing," he said, "that old Benno." She snorted disdainfully. "I'll teach him to row. Indeed, I will, another time." Say, Pippi," said Thomas respectfully, "why do you wear such big shoes?" "So I can wiggle my toes, of course," she answered. Then she crept into bed. She always slept with her feet on the pillow and her head was down under the quilt. "That's the way they sleep in Guatemala," she announced. "And it's the only real way to sleep. See, like this. I can wiggle my toes when I'm sleeping too. Can you go to sleep without a lullaby?" she went on. "I always have to sing myself for a while. Otherwise, I can't sleep a wink." Thomas and Annika heard a humming sound under the quilt. It was Pippi singing herself to sleep. Quietly and cautiously, they tiptoed out so that they could not disturb her. In the doorway, they turned to take the last look toward the bed. They could see nothing of Pippi except her feet resting on the pillow. There she lay, wiggling her toes emphatically. Thomas and Annika ran home. Annika held her coral necklace tightly in her hand. "That certainly was strange," she said. "Thomas, you don't suppose Do you suppose that Pippi had put these things in place beforehand? You never can tell, said Thomas. You just never can tell about anything when it comes to Pippi. Today's story time is over. I wish my angel a good night's sleep. I kiss you long on your forehead. See you again next time.